Welcome ladies and gents from a very hot and humid London town. This is a longer video as you guys can probably see, so I'm going to timestamp each of the fights that we're going to analyze, and you can jump straight to the fight or fights that you're interested in if you don't want to sit around for the entirety of the video. We're going to get deep and technical about Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez, JAIME Munguia and Derevyanchenko, how those fights played out and where those guys go from here. We're also going to talk about Sonny Edwards, who's received a lot of criticism for his comfortable win over ANDRES CAMPOS. A lot of people feel he's picked up a lot of bad habits, and they now massively favor Bam Rodriguez. We're going to talk about whether that's a fair analysis or not. Let's get cracking. The Josh Taylor Teofimo fight, first 2/3 of the fight, really high level stuff. In the final third of the fight, Teofimo maintained a very high level. Josh Taylor's level actually fell off a cliff though. And listen, some of that had to do with the investment that Teofimo was doing, the great work that he was doing. Some of it also had to do with some of the refereeing. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. But a lot of it also had to do with the fact that Josh Taylor just started to look very, very flat. And we did speak about the fact that the weight could play a serious role here. Now, I don't really like blaming a weight drain on a guy's defeat, because at the end of the day, if you're struggling that much at the weight, you should have gone to 147, right? So I'm not going to hold this against Teofimo Lopez. As far as I'm concerned, Teo now has one of the best CVs in boxing. He's beaten a number of top 10 guys, people like Richard Comey, who blows Comey out like that. Nakatani was a top 8 guy as well at the time. Very, very dangerous guy. He dealt with him in a hard fight, but he won that fight. Sandor Martin, another hard fight, who goes under the radar. No one looks good against Sandor. He's run into this smoke that you're not getting credit for. And that shows you that Teofimo is a serious dude, right? He's not trying to manufacture his way. He's looking for tough fights. And then he's got, of course, the two big elite wins, so to speak, against Lomachenko and now Josh Taylor. Sure, he lost to George Kambosos. Defeats happen when you take risks. But in terms of his victories and achievements, he was the main man at lightweight. At one point, you know, he established himself as undisputed. And even if you don't want that as an official tag, regardless, he was the man with all the primary belts. He was the man without dispute. Now, at 140, he's become the lineal champ. I know Max Kellerman was saying we should practically see him as undisputed now. You can't really do that, because the fact of the matter is you've got Matthias, you've got Prograis, you've got Rolando Romero, who are carrying belts at the moment because Taylor had dropped the belts. He'd vacated them. So you can't really look at him as undisputed, but he is the lineal champ. So I've got no problem where you have him, you know, anywhere between 10 and 5 on your pound for pound list. I totally get it. But by the same token, we also have to observe Josh Taylor and try and judge what went wrong with him and where he goes from here. So it would be remiss of me to pretend that he didn't just seem to become physically flat and tired as the fight wore on. So let's talk about how things seemed to play out. Early on, I thought Josh Taylor started really well, but I thought both men did. It was a good tactical chess battle. They were engaging each other's lead hands. You saw that Teofimo was looking to be more aggressive with the hooking of his lead hand. Josh Taylor was more seeking to engage and offer feints and threats to come in and then stab jabbing to the chest or to the head if Teo would bend slightly and things like that. But Taylor, as you know, as we said in the preview, his legs were a big part of his game, and he was constantly dipping at the legs, threatening to come in, that little feint, that little flick hand that he does, and then he starts shooting the backhand. And the backhand would have so much success to the body. Teofimo Lopez would have success with the backhand as well, but when he would lead off and get it, you would then see Taylor instantly fire back like a trigger counter, and he would land too, almost nullifying the work that Teofimo had done beforehand. Then Taylor, as we expected again in the preview, came inside and started to double up with those hooks, and he started to just look like he's got that more of that variation that we spoke about. So through the first 3 rounds, I thought that Josh Taylor's got it. Then Teofimo started to make an adjustment. You saw that he started to change the height dynamic and start to give different looks. So he'd start to threaten to come low and start to change the angles, as though he was going to change the stance from orthodox to southpaw, and he's crouching low, and then he starts shooting power shots that are coming upwards, almost like an up jab, but he'd do it with a power shot too. Later on in the fight, he would literally leap into those. So he threw a gazelle punch essentially, or a gazelle jab at one point, where he's literally leaping into the shot. Something that, of course, Marvin Hagler used to do, something that Andre Ward used to do, and he would surprise Josh Taylor later in the fight. But what that was doing, by changing the angles and giving different looks, it was making Josh sort of concerned about overreaching. But this is where the weight then started to play a role, in my opinion, because as the fight started to wear on, you saw that he wasn't crouching at the legs like he likes to do, Josh, and changed the height dynamic with Teo. He started staying tall, and his legs started to look weaker, so to speak. Now, yes, Teofimo was landing some lovely shots to the body, but they were landing big shots on each other's bodies, and early on it was Taylor that was landing more. Is it just a case of Josh Taylor not being as durable as Teofimo, or that Teofimo hit so much harder and so much more destructively that he was able to take the legs away from Josh Taylor? I would venture to suggest no. I mean, is Teofimo a bigger single puncher than Regis Prograis? I would say no. And he didn't have that issue against Prograis. Now, unlike Prograis, because Teofimo is looking to step back and change the levels, he's not making you reach as much, Prograis, right? He doesn't do it quite as much. He's not exiting the pocket in the way that Teofimo would do. But nonetheless, Taylor did just seem to lose those legs as the fight wore on. And that's when Teofimo started to really light him up at points. And as the fight wore on and got into the latter half, you saw that Taylor started to look as though he was, I don't want to say the word ragged, but his construct would be going. I mean, he'd throw the backhand and his back leg would swing around as well, and he'd end up squaring up, because not only is he overreaching and trying to find a home for what he's doing, because he's not lowering his legs in order to get to the height of Teofimo and be able to work from there and then work his way up and go taller, he's punching down and overreaching almost, and he's just out of range, Teofimo. Well, now you've got to reset. And Teo is such a good counter-puncher, as we spoke about in the preview, that he was able to be timing him and start to land these big shots. In terms of the referee, I'm not blaming him at all for anything here. Teofimo was brilliant and he deserved the win, right? I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. But the referee was very keen to stop them from working up close. Even when there wasn't a clinch or it wasn't initiated by Josh Taylor, Teofimo would like sort of duck down sometimes and almost force his way into the midriff of Taylor, who would sort of naturally, as he's coming forward, lean on him because the momentum's taking him in. He would then try to work from there, punch to the ribs, push off, throw an uppercut, and he should be allowed to do that because there is no clinch. He's got an arm free, and it would be the ref that would instantly stop them and tell Taylor off. So what that did is it stopped Taylor's usual ability to be able to fight on the inside as well. So now you've created a scenario whereby he's got to fight tall against this really sharp puncher who's got brilliant upper body movement, and his legs are starting to look like they're going in the latter half of the fight. It was a recipe for disaster for Josh Taylor. In the 12th round, Taylor's back on the ropes, got a high guard, and as Lopez is entering, he tries to time him with this left hook, and it's a little bit wide, and Lopez, who's walking in, just times him with this lovely right hand, lands flush on the chin, and he lands, and the rotation of Taylor's hook finishes, and he loses his construct, and in that moment, he's just spaced out, right? And Teo could jump on him in this moment, but he doesn't. He almost is looking to pick his shots. He's staying calm. He's walking him down. He's not even really speeding up how he closes the range. It's as though he's feeling, this is in the bag. I don't want to start taking unnecessary risks and potentially walk onto something. I'm going to take my time and bust him up. Later in that round, in that final round, when Taylor was up in the corner, there was a point where Teo disengaged, literally ran to the other turnbuckle, turned on the turnbuckle and started looking up to the heavens as though to say, I've done this. This was a few seconds before the end of the fight. It was as though he felt, I've got this in the bag now and I don't want to take risks. But if he was really looking to take Taylor out, if he felt he was behind and he really let his hands go, Taylor was there for the taking by the end of the fight. Now, in terms of the future, Teofimo Lopez Sr. had said prior to the fight to Bill Haney that they would be willing to take the Haney fight as long as they get $20 million. Since the fight, Teofimo Lopez has announced his retirement. And in an interview to Sean Porter, he was saying, I'll only come out of retirement if they offer me 9 figures because according to Lopez, I'm generating $100 million for Top Rank. I've been getting $1 million a fight and I'm still getting that, and it's unfair. Other fighters who have achieved considerably less than me are getting $10-15 million and it's time to get paid, basically. He's also, of course, in the recent past made accusations of favoritism about a specific demographic of fighter, and a lot of people accused Teofimo of being racist for that. Now, it's distasteful to inject race into everything. You guys know how I feel about that. It's done consistently in America, unfortunately, in American boxing. It does my nut, but it doesn't make you racist to accuse others of being prejudiced against you, which is basically what he's done. However, you can still be wrong about your interpretation of things, and as I've explained in another video, the fact of the matter is promoters are interested in one color above all else, and that color is the green. They're interested in money. So they are looking at this from a perspective of investment. What they are willing to invest is determined by what they are potentially going to get back as an investment. The fact of the matter is the biggest 3 demographics of fans in the sport of boxing are British, Mexican, and African American. In the United States, for instance, there are 1 million Honduran Americans. There are 43 million African Americans. So when you're talking about an investment to get a return, of course you're going to be willing to pay more to a demographic that's much bigger, because the whole point is that you're going to create a star, and the attention that star garners is going to then translate into you getting revenue in return. So they go in to think Shakur Stevenson can be a bigger star than Teofimo, even if Teofimo achieves more than Shakur Stevenson, or Jared Anderson, or Keyshawn Davis. That is just the reality, guys. Teofimo himself, Roman Gonzalez, Lomachenko, Alexander Usyk, some of the most talented fighters in the sport, they do not get the status of commercial A-side too often because they don't generate the same revenue. This is the reality, and a lot of people don't like this. They accuse me of bias when I was talking about this with Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk and the splits there. This is just the reality of how the sport works. It is a business dressed as a sport, as Steve Kim once said when he was being interviewed on my channel. Check those interviews out, they're really interesting videos. So that is the reality. So where does Teofimo go from here as a result of that? He could decide to go down the route of a high-profile American fighter, Tank Davis, for instance. If they want to keep it in-house, he could go to Devin Haney. And let's be honest, as distasteful as it is with the comments that he's made, you know for a fact you're going to have certain factions online who are going to be pushing the whole race thing. And that is going to generate interest. It's distasteful, but if you're talking about generating interest to make money, that's blatantly what's going to happen. You've got other options as well. If you want to build a bigger fan base abroad, you go on a bit of a world tour. Well, Josh Taylor has offered him a rematch in Scotland. And for those of you out there that are going to say, what are you talking about, Chris? Why would he go to Scotland when he's just taken the belt off Taylor? Well, Taylor just had the belt and he just fought Teofimo in his hometown, right? So it's not impossible to do. We've seen Bud Crawford go to Scotland in the past to fight Ricky Burns. So he might want to go down that route of saying, listen, let me go abroad and build a demographic there. You know, maybe I'll even fight in Australia one day. He might try and play it that way. Maybe Saudi Arabia, they're looking to invest big time, as you can see at the moment too. So let me know where you think he goes from here. In terms of Josh Taylor, is it a case of him being washed? Is it a case of him really struggling at the weight and he just needs to move up now to 147? And if he does, we'd get the sort of Josh Taylor we saw in the first 3 or 4 rounds tonight, and he'd be able to sustain that for longer periods? Or is there a reason he never moved to 147 in the first place? Because his bullying style with his inside game, which is very technical, I'm not saying he's just a size guy, but that style is very physical. And does he look at it and say, if I don't have the strength advantage, I may not be the same fighter anymore, so I'm better suited to 140, in which case he's past his best now? Let me know what you think about both of these fighters and where they go from here as well, and how you saw this fight. Now, in terms of Derevyanchenko versus Jaime Munguia, what a fantastic fight. Fight of the year candidate. I had it 114-113 to Sergei Derevyanchenko. I have no problem if you had it to Munguia, because there were a few swing rounds in there. Rounds 3 and 4, for instance, there were swing rounds. I gave them both to Derevyanchenko. So if you give them to Jaime Munguia and he wins the fight, I got no problem with it. It was an action-packed fight, start to finish. Derevyanchenko is one of those guys who, he's in the who needs him club, man, and he's a very good fighter. And often he falls just short at the highest level. I think he's 0-4 now in World Championship fights, but he's a tough dude, man. He reminds me a little bit, stylistically speaking, of Carlos Takam. Thick set, quite short, knows how to make himself shorter, really good feet that can move laterally. He can change his level and then shoot up with big powerful hooks, very much like Carlos Takam. And just like Takam, he gives everybody a very tough night. Now, in terms of Munguia, he's got some great weapons. He's got a lovely, powerful jab, naturally heavy hands. He'll throw a left jab, right hand, and then finish off that combination with a lovely low left hook to the liver. And it's a lovely shot. It's his best shot. And against a guy like Derevyanchenko, it's particularly effective because he will like to roll under shots. And as he's rolling up, he'll come with hooks. So he comes low, changes the height dynamic, and then comes up with a hook. If he does come low and you shoot that left shot to the liver, even if he tucks the elbow, you're landing somewhere. There's a thudding shot somewhere. So if he blocks it and it's not a scoring shot, you can still potentially affect his construct, affects his balance. If it does land on the bicep consistently, or behind the elbow or under the elbow, you're going to be causing some physical damage there too. He also used an uppercut, the backhand uppercut, to very good effect on occasion, and on more than one occasion he hurt Derevyanchenko. So there was some really good stuff in there from Munguia, and he wants to fight David Benavidez, and what a firefight that would be, because Benavidez has a Callum Smith-esque quality to him sometimes, where he'll stand tall for a big man and just cover up, but look to come inside and let go of hooks, similar to Smith. And so you can find him, you can touch him. And it would be a really interesting fight because he has got heavy hands. But where Munguia lacks is his defensive nous. One of the things he does, he will stay on the line and he'll stay quite tall, and he's trying to catch shots. And he's actually quite good at throwing up that right hand and catching shots on the outside with that right hand. But he doesn't take his head off the line. He doesn't really get side to side. He doesn't change the levels. He's quite linear in his entry and exit. And so if you are going to punch with him, you can find a home, particularly with straight punches. In addition to that, when he's throwing hooks, although I really like his left hook to the liver, his hooking technique's quite wide. And so when Derevyanchenko, who's got shorter arms, was rising from a crouched position and throwing a hook, and they were hooking left hooks together, it would be Derevyanchenko that would land first. And so at one point, his corner had even told him, stop throwing left hooks, keep it long, right? And he actually, whilst that was the right advice, he actually had a bit of a dip after that. And then later on in the fight, he started to come on again because he threw caution to the wind and started fighting, because ultimately that's what this guy's all about. He just wants to bring smoke. And the irony is that they wanted to only have it as a 10-round fight, and they were offering to pay money to Sergey in order to accept it being 10 rounds. Sergey said no, thinking he's obviously unfit, he's not prepared. And ironically, it was in rounds 11 and 12 that Munguia would have turned it around if you had him winning the fight, because he won the 11th, and in the 12th he dropped Munguia with a lovely shot to the liver. And he really could have taken him out. Derevyanchenko was struggling to stay on his feet in that last round, but he managed it. Munguia punched himself out a little bit. I don't think he was particularly smart in that moment, and he was just swinging away constantly. Although he did land some other good shots to the body, he wasn't really seeking to set big shots up. He was just throwing as many big shots as he could. And he survived. I think, in other words, Munguia has got some really good offensive arsenals, but I don't think his ring IQ is that good. And I think his defense needs a lot of work. But I would love to see a rematch, or potentially a David Benavidez fight. Denzel Bentley's been calling him out tonight as well. Any one of those I'd love to see. Derevyanchenko, where does he go from here if he doesn't get the rematch? He's one of those guys who's a bit like a Carlos Takam, like I said, a Derek Chisora guy who you know is going to bring good value. So whoever they put him in with, you're going to want to watch it, right? But at his age, this could very well have been a last hurrah before he sort of, you know, sails off into the sunset, so to speak. Let me know what you think about that, ladies and gentlemen, but what a brilliant fight it was. Now, in terms of Sonny Edwards, you guys know I've been a massive fan for years, way before it was popular, way before he became famous, so to speak, through boxing or on Twitter. As a Twitter troll, I've been saying he's going to be a superstar. So when I was watching this fight tonight, I had one or two little criticisms. Then I go onto Twitter and I start seeing the backlash. How is this guy going to beat Bam Rodriguez? He's got no chance. I can't believe Eddie Hearn was saying this guy is a pound-for-pound level star. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are you lot talking about? This is a fight where he's barely lost 3 rounds and they were on activity. It's not like he got beaten up or anything. And you guys are writing this guy off for what? I know Barry Jones was talking about how he's picked up a lot of bad habits in these last 3 fights. I actually think he's doing this on purpose, moving back onto the ropes in order to work on certain things. We know that Sonny Edwards, he knows that he can get on the back foot and that he's a genius and he can make guys look stupid. But he's also looking to work on stuff for the future. Let's take today's fight, for instance, with Campos. There were a couple of moments where he was trying to affect the construct of Sonny Edwards. In the first round, Sonny had his back up on the ropes and he started framing him, or he started using his forearm to pin Sonny and then go to work from there. And he actually had some success in the first round by doing that, because it was affecting the balance of Sonny, who got caught a little bit too square on the ropes, being pushed back onto the ropes, and he wasn't able to get anything off of himself. And because he's being pinned, he's getting caught with shots. And the referee actually pulled him up on it at one point and said, stop using your elbow. But there are a lot of referees that do allow things like that, and they do allow head control. Sonny doesn't want to be in a position where he's caught in that situation in future and he doesn't know how to handle it. So he's got to do these sorts of things and work on these sorts of things. There was another moment whereby, I think it was in the 6th round or something like that, Sonny would back up with a high guard, and you saw that Campos used his right hand to literally pull down at the guard and come up with the left hook. You know that thing that Lomachenko used to do, where he'd pull down the lead hand or one of the hands of the guard and then come around with a hook? That's what he tried to do, and he actually missed it. But the point is, he was trying to affect the guard of Sonny, the construct of Sonny. He was trying to push him and things like that to get him off balance on the ropes. Sonny wants to work on these things. Vasyl Lomachenko in his first fight against Salido was vastly superior and as a talent. And I know a lot of people consider Loma to have actually won that fight. It was a very close fight. But even if you don't think he won that fight, The fact of the matter is, why didn't he win that fight? Because as an amateur coming into the pros and taking on such a good fighter so early in his career, he hadn't yet been prepared for the rough, dirty stuff. And Salido was using a lot of dirty stuff. So Sonny's working on stuff. I'm not going to be critical of that. The other thing that I wanted to sort of comment on, though, when it came to Sonny Edwards, is that in my opinion, he was giving a little bit too much for free, so to speak. You know, when he's on the back foot, he's incredible. He will mess with different looks and change angles, read fighters, take half a step back, make guys look stupid. But when they're reaching for you, they're overreaching, and they're desperately trying to get to you, not only are you making them look stupid, it's disheartening psychologically and emotionally, but it's also more likely to get fighters tired. So what he'll do is, as he's backing out, he'll slow down and then speed up the exit point. He'll mess with the speed of his movement. But there are points where he comes to a complete standstill, almost to a complete standstill. And he's looking to throw a check hook as the fighter is seeking to enter. And one of the areas where you can find a bit of a home against Sonny Edwards is to the solar plexus, or to the pit of the stomach. And what is often happening with Campos tonight, and I've seen it happen in other fights, he'll overreach Campos to land to the belly. But because Sonny is looking to just throw a single check counter of his own, if he misses that, the shot that lands, because he's taken half a step back, there's not much there to it. You're not punching through the target. So he might not actually feel it as a big punch. It's not significant. He's barely touched me. But from the judge's perspective, he's landed a shot. That's a scoring shot. I've landed to the solar plexus. I've landed to the pit of the stomach. And so in rounds where things are a little bit slow, you could potentially be getting outworked there. This is, remember, we are being ultra critical here. We're nitpicking because he's such an elite level talent, right? But that's how you judge these elite level talents, through a different microscope. And a similar thing applies for when he's willingly leaning back on the ropes. And like I said, I understand if he's working on things or using a rope-a-dope type of tactic. I get that. But by the same token, depending on the vantage point of where a judge is sitting, shots that you feel are partially landing, he could be saying they're scoring shots. And so you might be winning around because you're landing the cleaner stuff, and it actually goes against you because from his perspective, it looks like you're actually getting outworked. And sometimes Sonny as well will be up on the ropes, and he'll have one arm across his sort of midriff, and with the other arm he's covering up and catching shots and rolling. And all it takes is one incorrect reading, a double up of a particular shot that you weren't expecting or something like that. And if he lands something big, it could change the trajectory of the fight. Sometimes when he's in that position as well, shots are coming just underneath the elbow and they're ripping the body. And obviously he's able to take these shots, otherwise he wouldn't be so comfortable there. But you're still inviting unnecessary danger, I think. I think he needs to use a little bit more... I'd like to see him actually clinch a little bit more in those positions as well. He rolls very well and he can change the level, but I don't really see him change the level and then thrust him with the shoulder, bump the opponent to get him off balance when he's up on the ropes, and then exit or bump him and then come up with underhooks and tie him up and stuff like that. I'd like to see him do a little bit more of that ugly stuff when he's up on the ropes too. Maybe that's in his arsenal and he would do that against the more dangerous guys. Maybe, right? As long as he is actually working on stuff and not picking up these bad habits, so to speak, where he will be staying on the ropes for too long against the likes of more devastating punchers and better fighters, then I'm fine with it. You know, the perfect balance for me was the Mitolani fight, whereby he's on the back foot and he's making him fall short. And then when he's forced to exchange in sporadic moments, he can more than handle his own. And I think that's what he's trying to do here with the inside work on the ropes. But something to also think about from a tactical perspective about fighting with his back off the ropes, something to consider when it comes to Bam Rodriguez against Israel Gonzalez. When Gonzalez was willingly going back on the ropes, you saw that Bam Rodriguez looked a little bit perplexed, particularly with his exit point. And he was getting caught. He wasn't coming off the line when he was backing off, when he was exiting, when he'd finished his own work. And a lot of that is the fact that a lot of his movement is based around getting fighters to reset by stepping around them. So he'll go to work and then change the angle by stepping around them. Because Gonzalez's back was on the ropes, he couldn't step around him. And so that meant that he was a little bit baffled, a bit perplexed, I felt. And listen, he won the fight, there's no doubt about it. But early on, he was getting a little bit outworked and there were a lot of shots landing to the body. And so Sonny might have looked at that and thought, listen, there might be a situation here where I want to back up onto the ropes because I don't think he's that good against opponents that are willing to do that. So let me work on a few things. And for those of you that remember the Anthony Joshua Alexander Usyk preview that I did, where I felt that Usyk would get the better of AJ, his fans would feel like he won the fight, but that he wouldn't be allowed to get the decision in London. In the end, he won it so comfortably that they couldn't not give him the decision. But one of the areas that I felt that AJ should have tried to capitalize on is to study Tony Bellew's approach and also Maris Briedis' approach in certain areas and try to take away the opportunity for Usyk to step around him by backing up onto the ropes. Everyone was talking about walk him down like a big man, and you've got to be able to have varied plans when it comes to these guys. Plan A, B, C, D, E, because they're top level fighters, so you don't just approach him one way. But one area was to starve him of that space around him, and Bellew would do it by backing onto the ropes, walking sometimes across the ropes, and he's got his shoulder pointing at Usyk, so he's got him like a 10 p.m. position. He'd try and roll with a shot and then come back with a right hand of his own, and he'd land flush consistently early on, and then Usyk read that and started to feint to draw the shot out and, you know, vary the entry point angle and stuff like that, but he had success. Briedis would do it more by going into the corner. But again, you're talking about areas whereby you can have some success. If he reads it, you then adjust to another plan. You make adjustments throughout the course of the fight. Maybe Sonny is looking at certain areas here and saying, I could have some success by backing off to the ropes with Bam, but I need to do it at the right time, and so I need to work on certain things. Maybe. So whilst it wasn't Sonny's best performance, I do think he was just working on things. If you disagree with me and you're one of those people that is more concerned now about Sonny's prospects against Bam, let me know in the comment section down below. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.